be talking about Patriot Act. So September 11, 2001, the day that shall remain in infamy. On this day, 30,000 people died, and 343 of them were firefighters and paramedics. 23 of them were New York City police officers, and 37 Port Authority police officers. Not only was September 11 take place in the World Trade Center at New York City, it also took place in the Pentagon, and there was a report of another fourth airplane that crashed in a farm in Pennsylvania. So the results of September 11. After 9/11, the U.S. and its citizens knew they had to do something to prevent future attacks. So my credibility, as a political scientist, I feel my job is to inform people who are not well educated in this field and inform them of the truth of each laws and how they will be affected by them. Okay, so my preview. First, I will begin by explaining why this law was implemented. Then I will explain how this law works, and lastly, I will talk about the effects it has on your everyday life. Okay, so after the horrible attack on the United States, many of the United States citizens had their mind destined to vote for a new bill that's called the Patriot Act. Americans felt that the United States was vulnerable and that the government should do something to prevent future attacks. So how was this law adopted? 19 Al-Qaeda members hijacked 4 fuel-loaded commercial airplanes. Two of these were destined to hit New York City's World Trade Center, one in the Pentagon. So these are pictures that, top right is a picture of the World Trade Center before the attack. Top left is a example of a commercial airplane, and bottom left is a picture of the results on the attack on the Pentagon, and bottom right is a farm in Pennsylvania where the fourth plane was crashed. Okay, according to CNN website, the morning of September 11, 19 Al-Qaeda members hijacked 4 fuel commercial airplanes, and there was one plane in which it was still out in the airs, and the United States government officials could not locate this airplane. Unfortunately, these terrorists succeeded, but there was still one of them, and the results of the last airplane was this. Now that you know what happened, I will now talk about how the U.S. What the U.S. did to prevent these future attacks. So this is the Patriot Act. Many Americans at that time felt that it was a required law that they should implement to prevent future attacks. But what many Americans now regret is how they are affected on their everyday life. So the Patriot Act works as a kind of like an excuse that the government uses, such as the NSA, that they tap into your phone calls, they look at your emails, they look at your text messages, they look at what books you check out, your credit card histories, what you buy, and then they begin spying on you in a much more effective way that you're basically spied on your everyday life, and you don't feel comfortable. Okay, so now that we talked about how this law was prevented, I will now talk about the pros and cons. So the pros, according to the WRAL.com, it states a true event of a young 16-year-old who was falsely accused of being a terrorist. He was accused of making a bomb, and about 12 FBI agents stormed into his house and arrested him. The cons, LosAngelesTimes.com stated that there have been 39 publicly known cases where the United States government has prevented terrorist attacks, and there's quite a few that have not been publicly known to the public. Okay, so now that I have explained to you why the Patriot Act was very important. I will review what I've done. I first talked about how why the reason why the Patriot Act was in place. I talked about how it affected the United States, and I've also talked about how the pros and cons are compared and what they've done to affect our everyday life. Thank you.